Just a handful of sailors to take on the might of Persia? It'll take a marathon effort now on BBC Two from the Time Commanders.
Greece, 500 years before the birth of Christ. The Persian Empire dominates the ancient world, and only one nation stands in its way: the democracy of Athens. Now, 11,000 Athenian citizens must defend their culture, their homeland, and their freedom against the army of Darius, King of Kings. Leading the Greeks are a team of amateur sailors comprising 2 generals.
Keep out to the right, they're just running off on their own.
And their lieutenants.
We're getting pinged up with the skirmishers.
They must hold off the Persian advance and impress 2 military experts.
That force will be wiped out.
Will the Persians crush the flower of Western culture? Or will the Greek heroes triumph on the day?
Oh, Jesus.
This is Time Commanders. Joining Eddie Mayer inside our 21st century war room are a team of friends from Ipswich Sailing Club. Andrew James, 42, helmsman, rank general. Dave Chisholm, 36, helmsman, rank general. Kerry Ryan, 22, navigator, rank lieutenant. Scott Dawson, 24, trimmer, rank lieutenant.
Drew, you're helmsman normally. You're normally in charge, right?
Yeah, do quite a bit of helm.
So what does that involve? Do you all go in the same boat together?
We have all sailed on the same boat together. We've also sailed against each other quite a bit.
And I'm told that you in particular are very competitive.
Well, it wasn't me that said that.
No, it was Dave. We're coming on to him.
I think we all are a little bit.
Dave, you say Drew is dangerous when cornered. Just clearly from experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Suddenly when you're sort of racing against him and you think he's dead and buried, he just comes back and makes you pay.
You don't trust him then?
Oh, not as far as I can throw.
It's great you two are going to be generals working together in battle. That's going to all go well. Kerry, you know Dave extremely well, don't you?
Yeah, I've been going out with Dave for the last couple of years, so I managed to put him in his place and shout back when he gives me stick.
And you can take orders?
If I agree with them.
All right, Scott, you've raced everything from 60-foot yachts to dinghies. What's the hardest thing to do?
Adapt to which one you're trying to do. There's a big difference, and you've just got to adapt to what's going on around you and fit in with the team.
And right now, do you wish you were all at sea?
We'd feel a lot happier, I think.
Give it 20 minutes, you will be. All right, all the time we've been chatting. Down here, our 2 historical experts, Eric and Sol, have been completing their authentication of the battle. Gentlemen, do you want to come up here and give us the most basic information first?
Dr. Eric Nussbacher, Senior Lecturer in War Studies, Sandhurst. Dr. Saul David, Military Historian and Author.
All right, the Battle of Marathon. You're the Athenians versus the Persians.
And it's 490 years before the Christian era. There is one superpower in the world, and it's not you, it's the Persians. 50 years ago, they destroyed Babylon, and 35 years ago, they overthrew the pharaohs. And now they're coming for the Greeks.
The veteran Greek general Miltiades commands a citizen army from the democratic city-state of Athens. They're fighting to defend their lives, their freedom, and Athenian democracy itself. But they are outnumbered 2-1 by the Persian war machine.
You're going to be leading a few thousand Athenian farmers with a bit of rudimentary training and not a lot of military knowledge or understanding against the mightiest army in the known world, Darius, King of Kings. And if you lose, he'll kill everybody you know.
The army of Darius has destroyed another Greek city up the coast, and now they've sailed to Marathon to challenge the army of Athens. But the Persians may take hours to fully disembark from their fleet, now moored in the bay. Without time on their side, the Greeks must move hard and fast against their enemy. But before they can tackle the Persians, the team must learn as much as possible about the battle ahead. First, they get to look at the terrain. The Bay of Marathon is open and flat, dominated by a temple to the demigod Heracles. On one side of the plain stands the Athenian army, assembled in columns at the foot of a small hill, with the waters of the Aegean to their right. Opposite the Greeks, fresh from their journey by sea, are the troops of the Persian Empire, deployed in a very wide formation. Although they are massively outnumbered, the Greek army should benefit from the flat, open terrain.
The key to the team winning this battle is that they fight on the plain. They may be tempted to stay on the high ground. It's what armies often do, but their best chance of winning this is getting down onto the plain and meeting the Persians as quickly as possible.
That's the plain in the middle that you've already identified there.
Has this got any significance?
It's totally significant, isn't it?
You're saying that on the basis of what?
Well, I'm saying it on the basis that if we're looking for some form of protection, that could possibly be it.
There's some sort of urban war in there, is that what you mean?
I'm not sure. I haven't decided what sort of war I'm going to have yet.
You honestly can't use the temple. Carol Smiley's in there having it remodeled, so
Okay.
it's kind of
Changing rooms have moved in.
Yeah.
This is where the fighting's going to take place, isn't it? In the middle here.
Yeah, but where do we want it to
we
be?
don't necessarily need to fight.
We want
in
to
that
draw
plain.
them to us.
Yeah, but where we can move.
Is she like this at home?
That's when she said we can move. We bought another house.
But I think by now we've got a fair understanding of this land. This is probably an appropriate moment to find out a bit more about your own forces.
Scott and Kerry must discover one critical fact in their fight against Persian aggression. Whilst the Athenian army is 11,000 strong, it's made up solely of infantry. With no cavalry at their disposal and only a small number of skirmishers, the team must exploit the strength of their spear and shield-bearing volunteer army, known as the hoplites.
The hoplites are citizen soldiers. They're the territorial army. They're aged between 20 and 50. In order to be a hoplite in this period, you had to own enough land to have enough revenue to buy yourself this expensive, one-off sort of handmade armor.
These heavily armed soldiers comprise some of the noblest citizens of Athens, among them the playwright Aeschylus and the father of the great philosopher Socrates.
There are a lot of oldsters amongst those hoplites. It is not a vigorous, razor-edged army.
The hoplites fight shoulder to shoulder, using their shields and spears to form an almost impenetrable formation, known as the phalanx.
Hoplite infantry can only do one thing, and that is move forward towards the enemy, pointing a spear. That's it.
They make a formidable charge at the enemy, but the phalanx can only work on flat, open terrain. Will the team pick up on this critical detail?
So what are you guys thinking at this stage?
We know we're outnumbered, so we want to kind of lock in some space, and we like this kind of hill, which I really like the idea of holding. But it's whether we hold it and absorb their pressure, or whether how long we can hold that pressure before we knock them back.
The team are transfixed with the high ground. They know that they probably should close with the Persians, but they don't want to leave the safety of the high ground. They're talking about going lower down, but will they go low enough down for the phalanx to actually be an effective, aggressive tool?
We know that we're good at charging, but if we charge at them, we will be outflanked because there are just too many.
So I think we need to absorb and get rid of a load of them first.
But our other way with that is we're outnumbered over 2 to 1.
Yeah.
They're thinking, there aren't many of us, and we don't want to go down off the hill. I mean, they're talking about going down a bit lower, but not going down to the bottom. And the best way they're going to be winning this battle is by a bit of aggression.
The team's limited infantry force is split between the two lieutenants. Kerry controls the right flank and Scott the left.
We have 4 rows of infantry, and in the middle of that we have a set of generals.
Right.
Yep.
And what have you got?
I have got 4 sets of troops. The first one's the skirmishers, and they're just carrying javelins.
The skirmishers that the Athenians have got with them are comparatively weak, comparatively unskilled, and the Athenians don't really know how to use them yet.
The next 3 sets are all heavily armoured and are carrying huge, great long spears.
But the hoplites are only effective if they maintain their tight phalanx formation.
The Greek hoplites are superbly suited to fighting one kind of battle, but that's all they can do.
Do we get any idea as to how far they will, what their range is?
They're close combat, and they don't like breaking formation really, because they need to keep in depth.
All right, you've had an idea of your own troops. Now you want to know about the enemy.
Now Scott must send his scouts deep into enemy territory to spy on the Persians.
Now, Scott, just be careful with the old scouts, because the enemy, of course, will be watching.
The Persians outnumber the Athenians 2-1, so Scott must be on his guard.
Who are they? Oh, that's his scout group.
The Persian army comprises 9,000 archers, as well as 16,000 slingers, infantry, and highly trained cavalry. They're a force to be reckoned with.
The Persian army has been marching back and forth across Asia for years, destroying empire after empire. The Athenians are up against a hard, razor-sharp Persian army that's as close to professional soldiering as you got in the ancient world. Athens is standing alone against the Persians.
They're in a long row of 4 at the moment, and some guys.
The Persian soldiers wore hoods with holes cut in for them to see, and that must have given them a bizarre, alien appearance. Unlike Greek soldiers, Persian soldiers fought silently. They didn't shout, they didn't chant, they just went to work like professionals. A silent, masked enemy, wearing a bizarre garment. They wore trousers. And as far as the Greeks were concerned, a trouser-wearing barbarian, someone who didn't speak Greek but just went bar, bar, bar. These were aliens. They must have been frightening.
How are your scouts doing, Scott?
And then can we go right along?
We're trying to get close to them without actually them seeing too much of us.
Last to disembark are the Persians' deadliest weapon. Scott must now take careful note of the 5,000 highly skilled cavalry now assembling on the beach. They are trained to use hit-and-run tactics to disrupt and confuse their enemies.
The most fearsome part of the fearsome Persian army is the cavalry. These cavalrymen with their missile weapons formed 20% of the Persian army at this stage, and they were very, very important to the Persian way of war.
Of course, it gave them mobility, it gave them striking power, but it also gave them the ability to attack at different points at different times during a battle. The Greeks, of course, are hemmed in because they basically have to advance forward in this huge body. Tactically, the Greeks are always in danger of being given a good kicking by a mobile army.
But the Persian army could be crippled by their cavalry's late arrival on the beach. Can the team turn this to their advantage?
The Persian cavalry are not necessarily in position to attack from the beginning, and therefore that's an added incentive for them to strike as quickly as possible before they actually do reach the field.
While studying their enemy, have the team left their scouts in mortal danger?
Oh no, what's this?
Scott's out the back. Shoot at him from there, Scott.
That's us.
Grass.
Yeah, they're us. It's Scott's scouting group.
It looks like they might be moving their scouts a little bit too close to the Persian army, and they may be tempted to fire at them.
If you can run down between the two divisions.
You want me to run down between the two, do you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what they do.
Let's go straight through the middle. Oh, there we go. Get out of there. Didn't want to start the battle already.
That'll be right.
Go.
You're very relaxed about this.
It's okay.
That's it, run, Scott.
We've just got
Can you see what's going on while you're there,
Can you
Scott?
see who
That's
you're-
not
who you're fighting
Nate, and
against?
get your camera in and see what's going on.
These are archers, so we've got...
And you're sure you want to lose this many men before the battle starts?
Well, no, we don't really, but there's not a lot we can do about that.
We needed to get in and see what they've got.
You didn't expect to engage, did you?
Well,
That's the trouble with the enemy. They just
I know,
don't
well,
wait.
they weren't ready.
Oh, look, no, they're leaving us alone now.
Absolutely
Okay.
no manners,
Don't you
right?
just hate that?
That was probably a bit of an error, actually, but...
Just as we thought, they did exactly send their scouts a little bit too close to the Persians, and the Persians gave them a bit of a bloodied nose. Maybe they found out enough information to justify it, I don't know, but they're learning slowly.
All right, Scott, what did you find out?
Found out that we're up against it.
The team are indeed up against it. At the expense of his scouts, Scott has uncovered the Persian arsenal. But has he found out enough about their strengths and weaknesses? And how will the team apply this to their battle plan?
All right, so that's the opposition.
Yeah.
Now is the time to discuss and decide on your battle plan.
The team's best chance of victory is to take the battle to the Persians and fight them on the open plain. But has Dave grasped this fact?
I'd like to hold a position, let them come to us, and then back them back and literally hold one space and hold the high ground.
They're going to hold the high ground and let them come to us. It's a complete contradiction of everything they've been told in terms of the value of their troops, how they're good at close quarter combat. They are a shock weapon. They fight best on flat land. They haven't listened to a thing.
They're lightly armoured. They're not going to want to fight up front. My only worry about that is they've got very, very strong archery, and we need to get rid of that, because if you do go and engage and come straight up against them, the archers are useless. They can't fight you because you're there, or you're hand to hand with them.
We've got some speed in the horses.
How many horses?
Is that legal?
Horses are red herring. They don't have any horse. They have some generals. If they send those in, they'll be wiped out.
If we got the skirmishers over there and followed through with the horses to get rid of the archers, the skirmishers can then get into the battle.
Here's your skirmishers, all right? At the moment, I've just brought them out of the way. What do you want to do with them? Up the front.
Get them in there.
And start attacking the archers with them early.
They want to use their skirmishers to take out the Persian archers. There are, of course, far more Persian archers than Greek skirmishers, and that if they try that and keep their hoplites back, it can only end in disaster.
Let's aim the skirmishers at some archers and
get rid of
some archers.
These skirmishers have javelins. They have no armour at all. They use their cloaks wrapped around their arms as protection. Very vulnerable, because archers have a range of 200 yards, and that's a lot further than they can throw a javelin.
I can't see that we have any alternative but to use the long-range people straight at first.
The team is letting themselves be ruled by their fears, and we're not seeing them trying to use their strengths against enemy weakness.
If we put them all in a lump, right, if we just had this great big lump of guys in the middle, they're just going to fire at us with their archers, and we're just going to get murdered. Whereas if we can maybe just take it to a fairly thick line, I think, going towards them.
He's beginning to talk about spreading them out in a long line and using them in an offensive way. I think he's, almost blundering into it, but he's getting there somehow.
So if we put, say, 6 lots of them like that, we can back these up effectively to use as reinforcements if we start getting heavy pressure in one area or another, right? And then towards the end, when we start to hopefully grind them down, we can bring in fresh legs towards the end of the second half.
Dave has just articulated the idea of having fresh legs towards the end of the second half. That's what we might call a tactical reserve, which is a nice idea.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to get up close,
Yeah, I realise that.
early enough, such that when the archers move out the way, right, and these guys come in,
well, we'll be then fighting.
We'll be fighting hand on hand, and these guys are now redundant, can't they? Because they can't fire at us.
Get rid of them with the horses.
Then we'll send the horses around after them. How about that?
Yeah.
For a plan.
Dave's aggressive new plan offers his team their best chance of victory. But will Drew, his fellow general, fall in line?
The reason I don't like the idea is that I believe that we're engaging them straight away.
Well, we can time that, can't we? We can agree that, like we said before. We'll sit up here, basically, ready to go, ready to rumble, looking big and bad and fierce, right?
Yeah.
You can talk the talk, can't you?
Oh, yeah, man. And then basically, when they start to come out at us, they're going to start pinging at us. Then we'll decide when we're going to go. But we want to use the protection.
But to start pinging at you.
Well, they will be pinging, right?
Although General Dave has encouraged his team towards an aggressive attack, General Drew is more cautious. By reverting to a strategy of defence, the team risk handing the initiative to the Persian army.
Okay, well, the time has almost come to see if this plan is any use at all. Adopt your positions and get ready to deploy your troops.
Commanding the Athenians at the Battle of Marathon are a team of yachtsmen from Ipswich. They must defend the democracy of Athens and defeat the might of the invading Persian Empire. The future of Greek civilization rests on their shoulders. The citizen army of Athens is outnumbered 2-1, but their strength lies in brute force. They could strike their enemy hard and fast before the Persians have a chance to deploy their cavalry. But the team plan to retreat from the plain, where their hoplites would naturally fight, and hold the high ground in defence. They will wait for a Persian advance and then strike hard to drive the Persians out of Greece, deploying their skirmishers in the front line. With time on their enemy's side, the team have placed their trust in the flexibility of their tactical reserve.
Scott, I've moved that reserve force back up that hill a bit further.
Everything back? Is that what you want? They're quite a long way away. They won't get there very quickly.
A culture known for forward thinking now marches its army backwards up a small hill. And the team's limited reserves retreat the furthest from the Persians.
Do you want to put the reserves quite close, or do you want them...
You want to be able to move them up quickly. You don't want to have them so they take 20 minutes to get in.
They're talking about using a tactical reserve, and the problem with that, as far as their army is concerned, is that the Greeks didn't really use tactical reserves. They fought in one huge formation. There was a good reason for that. These Corinthian helmets, which covered all of the face and the head, meant that you couldn't see much, and you certainly couldn't hear much. They fought in one solid body, and that was their only chance.
And make sure you stay on the slope, Scott, as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah?
So you want the whole thing on the slope?
We want everything on the slope. We don't want to be on the flat too early. We want them to have to come to us.
So the team's aggressive hoplites are told to wait on the slope, where their ability to charge is seriously reduced.
The further up the hill we get, you see, the better protection we get from the archers, because the archers aren't going to be able to fire as far up a hill.
Dave's fear of the Persian archers is driving him further from a fight, when his best chance of victory lies in a brutal heavy charge at the Persian front line.
And make sure your skirmishers are easily pick-outable.
Yeah. Skirmishers at the moment are way down in the front.
Oh, well, they've got to come right up.
We need them back as well.
Okay.
Well, they've got to run over there to pick a fire.
Yeah, but we don't...
Yeah, not yet, though.
This is all freebies at the moment.
The battle plan, as we can see it at the moment, is not going to work, and the reason it won't is because they've reduced their total frontage, and it will be very easy for this vastly superior Persian army to outflank them.
But Scott's recognised this danger, and he's come up with a cunning plan.
We can split the troops in half so that we can get twice the length.
They'll be a bit thin then, won't they?
No, it'd be too thin.
Okay.
I mean, we already decided at the beginning that we had to keep fairly compact.
Yeah,
we did.
In a split second, Scott's inspired suggestion is dismissed by his generals. A chance for success has been squandered.
That looks good. I like that.
Okay, and now you're going to get another advantage. Despite all the technical 21st century help we've given you already, we're going to give you a real-time satellite feed of your battlefield.
That's exactly what we had. We were in a different place, but that's about...
Well, that's all we got.
That's all we got, so that's what we've got to do.
Of course, now they can actually see this satellite view. It's telling them one crucial thing, and that is that the Persian army front is very spread out. Their best protection against that is to spread their own front out. They should know that, because they were told at the beginning that they are vulnerable to attacks from the flank. But what worries me is that they've got two lines and they're going to keep them.
We might have to spread out into a longer line to stop being outflanked. It's the first thing you can see.
This is going to be, yeah.
Dave thinks that he can have a plan B that will allow them to redeploy on a wider front. But unless he redeploys now, he will not get a chance. He will be enveloped. The Persians can easily envelop him both sides.
But it looks like Dave may have realised his mistake.
The first thing I want to do is start moving the whole front 6 divisions out wider.
We're going to go out.
Okay? And forwards, obviously.
At last, the team hit on the right strategy, deciding to broaden their line and move their troops back to the flat ground. But as they retrace their steps, the mighty Persian army begins to advance. 25,000 troops, on behalf of Darius, King of Kings, close on the outnumbered volunteers of the city of Athens. In the first sign of Greek aggression, the team send their lightly armed skirmishers down the slope to face the Persian advance. And behind them come the hoplites, returning to the flat plain where they should work best.
That's excellent, Scott. Kez, can you get him to do that?
Do the same thing, Kez.
Okay.
Kez, you need to get them in a line. That's it. And move them in that line forward.
Right, Scott, move the reserves up.
They are spreading their front. That's a good thing, but it's looking like a bit of a dog's dinner at the moment.
The Persian archers are getting within range, in preparation to launch their first attack.
Oh, we're getting pinged up with the skirmishers.
Some pinging.
With their skirmishers held back as cannon fodder, can the team march their heavier troops back down the hill in time to make their mark?
Time is crucial. They've got to engage the Persians as quickly as possible because the Persian cavalry are in the wings and they may deploy them at any moment. The longer the battle goes on, the more the danger that the Persian cavalry are going to be used.
Chaps, their cavalry's moving in.
Right.
Can you see that? Just appearing up onto the screen now is the Persian cavalry, and that is the danger that the Athenians have got.
But while the Persian cavalry make their way onto the battlefield, the generals focus on their skirmishers, still unsupported and under siege from arrow fire.
Are these guys getting pinged at? Right, charge them into some archers or something. Make them do something.
Despite mounting losses, the lone skirmishers plough on, hoping to get within range to launch their javelins at the enemy.
They're just getting shot at the moment because they haven't got the range.
Is the word you're looking for attack?
Yeah, that would be a good one.
But if arrows weren't enough, now the Persian slingers have a go at the Greeks.
They're unsupported, they've got no armour. That force will be wiped out. They're dropping like flies.
Without launching a single javelin, the skirmishers abandon the bloodbath, forcing their generals to commit their heavier troops.
Right, let's move everyone forward.
Okay, everything together?
At last, the hoplites reach the flat plain, where they began, and this army of poets and politicians, farmers and freemen begins the short march towards the Persians. But has the slope sapped their energy? Can the soldiers of General Miltiades maintain their critical formation?
Move up on the left-hand side, Scott.
Right,
rapidly.
Bring the skirmishers back, Kerry.
Move up on the left-hand side, rapidly.
Taking fright at the Persian archers, the generals instruct their left flank to advance ahead of their right, splitting their broad front line. Having done their job, the archers now retreat towards the safety of the Persian line. Now the team must rely on their hastily redeployed hoplites to smash the Persians.
They've got a broader front, which is good, but they're in no sort of order to actually fight, and yet the fight is about to begin.
On the general's orders, the team's front line has now split in two, and Scott's left-hand flank are about to engage with the Persians.
We're engaging. We're in.
They've got their left flank moving in on the Persians, but they're opening up their center. There are two ragged edges of the Athenian army, and the Persians are going to be able to roll them up.
Separated from their comrades on the left, Kerry's right flank now engage with the enemy. At last, the hoplites can get stuck in. And at close quarters, they butcher the lightly armed Persians. But the team have failed to protect their flanks, and the Persians seize the advantage, sending a group of infantry behind Greek lines on the right.
The Persians are doing just the right thing, which is getting round the sides. And the only way to prevent that is to have as broad a front as possible and to engage as fast as possible.
Kerry, the very, very right-hand battalion of your four, I want them to stop. The rest can keep on going forwards, otherwise they're going to get outflanked.
No, go back with them, in fact.
But it's too late to go back, and the Persian army complete their flanking maneuver.
We need to get the cavalry into this lot over on the far left.
The generals are unable to get Kez to do what they want her to.
But Eric, this was a problem that was set up because the battle plan was uncertain. We knew from that point that they would not have enough time to deploy their troops, however well the communication was between the two.
How do you think it's going?
Bad. On the right-hand side, it's
Yeah,
bad.
we didn't move up fast enough into them and we didn't stop that outside group. These aren't moving yet.
No, we need to move the cavalry right-hand side.
They're still talking about the cavalry. They don't have any cavalry. They've got generals. Whatever they do with them, they're going to be knocked out pretty swiftly.
While the team indulge their fantasy of a fictitious cavalry, there are horsemen aplenty on the Persian side. And having left the beach behind them, they're now closing in on the battlefield. Miltiades may be experienced, but will the team notice this new threat in time?
Right, Kerry, you've got a battalion of guys that aren't doing anything.
I don't know where you mean.
You see there's a big group of guys doing nothing? I want them over to the right. We've got a load surrounded. Get those guys there. The big bunch of guys.
Big bunch in the middle, where?
Right.
Oh, yeah, those ones.
More
Send them to the
or
right.
less identical.
Some of the Athenians aren't even engaged at this point, Eric, and that's the problem. They simply don't have enough men to be able to afford to not use them.
So you say it's going badly.
Well, I don't know. It's difficult.
What's gone wrong, and what are you going to do about it?
Scott's lot went moved out to the left quite happily in 3 groups, right?
And you wanted Kerry to repeat that?
Yeah, they all started marching into each other. They started marching backwards. They were all over the place.
We need.
While the generals worry about troop formation, the Persians outflank them yet again, this time with their cavalry. It's a critical moment for the Greeks. Can they hold their front line and withstand cavalry assault, or will their precious phalanx lose its formation at the first sign of trouble from the rear?
The whole formation can be used to rotate in one direction or another to seek for an enemy's weakness, but that's it. They don't have tactical flexibility.
They can go backwards, but only if they're retreating.
Well, Kerry, was that? I'm getting a hint from your generals that maybe you weren't in control of your troops at the beginning.
Well, they keep yelling stuff, but I don't understand what they're saying. They're just moving up, move them to the right. Well, which guys, where do you want them to be?
Kerry's not been clear on which direction you want to move in. Maybe talk about starboard or...
Well, it's just that...
The general's orders are not getting through, and now tempers are beginning to fray.
The ones on the right are the ones on the right, ones on the left.
He's blaming
and there's
you.
2 groups in the middle.
He's not at all.
But if you look in there, Kerry, there's a battalion of blokes. They're not doing anything.
No.
And they need to engage.
But there's a huge load of cavalry that are waiting to just...
But we've got to get rid of these guys first. We can't fight these guys and the cavalry. We've got to get rid of one and then the other.
Okay.
The team have noticed the Persian cavalry, but it may be too late. They're now behind Greek lines.
Oh, look at that. There are the Persian cavalry.
The cavalry are moving in as we feared they would.
General Miltiades hurls himself at the enemy, only to think better of it within seconds.
Their cavalry's charging.
Yeah, we know
that. We know, Scott.
Send everything at the cavalry, don't you think?
The team fall for classic Persian tactics and send their phalanxes straight into the arms of the enemy. But the Persian cavalry are only there to hit and run. Now a second wave of cavalry charge straight through the Greek front line and send the Athenians into total disarray.
Cavalry coming around both flanks. They're being outflanked and they're going to be cut to pieces.
Their cavalry's charging.
Yeah, we know that.
They're going to come in behind this group, behind you, Kerry.
So you need to turn.
That's the group there.
Turn
Here we
the
go.
face backwards.
Excellent.
Well done.
Excellent.
As the team pull their heavily armoured phalanxes out of formation, they become more vulnerable to attack, easy prey for a mobile cavalry. With one pocket of Greeks besieged, these skilled horsemen split in 2, targeting another group of exposed Athenians.
The team have done the exact opposite of what the hints at the beginning suggested they should, which is to stay together in a solid body. They are fragmented all over the battlefield. The Persians have committed their cavalry, they've outflanked them, and they're going to take each one of these groups in turn and cut them to pieces.
Keep out to the right, they're just running off on their own.
Yeah, and they need to run in. That means make them go
They're just
left.
running away. We can't do anything about them.
The team are facing the toughest lesson of war. When a battle plan fails, it's almost impossible to fight on the back foot and regain the initiative.
What they're doing now is they're forming a sort of laager in the centre of the battle. They're not actually engaging anyone, they're just acting on the defensive. It's the complete opposite of correct Athenian battle tactics.
The Persians don't have to come near them. The Persians can stop, have a tea break, sharpen their arrows.
Turn and face these guys.
Communication breaks down in the command centre and chaos ensues.
That's Scott's lot there, right in front of us now, going that way.
Right, he's going to have a go at the cavalry.
Where are these guys going? Can someone look out to the
Kerry,
right?
on the right-hand side. Can we go to the right-hand side, please? There's a group of our men heading for the sea.
Okay, their cavalry's running away from us again, and they're closing in from behind.
I don't know what these guys are doing.
No, we can't. Kerry, can you get them to come
Those
back?
ones going into the sea have got nothing to do with me.
A number of panicking Greeks now seek salvation in the arms of their sea god Poseidon.
in reality, if the battle was going this badly, they would have already done a runner.
That's right.
We've lost control of the group. We need everything in one place, but this guy's just running off without any explanation.
We need to get rid of that.
Understand that.
We don't.
The generals have lost control. The lieutenants are powerless to sway the battle, and now Miltiades himself pays the ultimate price.
Persian cavalry don't like close-quarter fighting, but in this particular case, they're indulging in it because it's so easy. They've got round the back of the Greek.
That's right, it's sport.
So what have we got left? Let's take stock. What have we got left? There's nothing we can do, I don't think. I mean,
we have to continue fighting.
Lieutenants, I don't want to alarm you, but the generals are saying there's nothing they can do. Do you have any thoughts?
There must be something, guys. You can't just stand there and say there's nothing I can do.
Communication between the generals and their lieutenants is beginning to break down, which you might expect, actually, because they're getting in good hiding. The team structure is collapsing.
The contact between the generals and the lieutenants hasn't been good all along. Kez has been kept in the dark by her generals.
There's another bunch of our troops getting hosed on and running away.
Well, somebody else is doing this.
Across the field, things aren't looking good for the future of Athens. The citizen soldiers, including the father of Socrates, can take no more.
They're all running away, just in different directions.
It's hilarious, isn't it?
It's not that amusing.
What's
All my
happening
attacks
here?
are going.
We've got to run in there, haven't we?
It was, of course, the Greek playwright Aristophanes who suggested that so heavy was the hoplite's shield that the best thing to use it for was a chamber pot, and I think that's rather apt at this stage.
Well, I don't know what that
Are they fleeing again?
They're fleeing again.
They've lost faith in their generals.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's not looking good.
Right, well, that's what we've got. We're engaging everyone.
Right.
Scott, you've got that bunch that you engaged out on the left.
Yeah.
What are you doing with them now?
Defeat
What's happened?
Oh dear.
They're running away.
Okay.
Defeat
They're all running away. I think we're whooped.
I think we've had it.
Oh dear.
You are defeated.
Oh dear.
You are defeated.
Oh dear. Lieutenants, if you want to come up.
It's a disaster.
What do you think went wrong?
The instructions from the back, because of what we're looking at, wasn't being relayed. We just couldn't understand what was going on.
Kerry?
I think our biggest flaw was that we saw the horses and we were like, well, they're going to obviously come and fight at some point, and we just completely ignored them and let them come in.
I think that we got obsessed by the battle in the middle. What we failed to do was to have any way of coping with the cavalry that came round the side.
I just thought, well, we haven't got enough blokes. We haven't got enough blokes to actually fight the blokes in front of us, let alone the cavalry.
Well, I
Because
always
there was a
felt all right about
wonderful-
the middle, but not the cavalry. I couldn't see what we were going to do about that, and there will be an obvious answer. But
Well, there was a wonderful moment, Dave, when you were just standing here and then the battle was going horribly wrong. And if I may, I don't do impressions, but if I may, this is what you were doing.
Don't do it for very long.
Like that. Now, don't get me wrong, that's what I would have done in your position.
bear in mind, we didn't have it. We were staring at a lot of blue
Well,
and no
Dave
red.
was staring.
Do you know what? If we had to do that again, we'd do exactly the same thing. I can't see another way of doing it. And what we did was we got beaten by more blokes. I'd love to see how it's really done. Just love to.
How handy! Because do you remember back about 1400 years ago when you met our historical experts?
yeah.
And they went upstairs, they've been watching everything. All right. Eric and So, I'm sorry you had to see that.
It's all very sad. And we might have to do without Socrates and possibly that Aeschylus as well. I think you've butchered them. Dave was thinking about the lives of his troops. All of those fathers and brothers out there, he didn't want to get killed. But the result of that was, what happened? You got him killed. Yeah?
For me, the problem started early. You should have realised that your only hope lay in two things. One, being aggressive, and two, preventing yourself being outflanked. And there's only one way to do that. That's to move on the Persians as quickly as possible with as broad a front as possible. Your troops are best at close-quarter fighting. The Persians don't like it. And I remember at one stage you were talking about staying up on the hill and fighting a defensive battle, which would have been even more disastrous. But this was pretty disastrous.
The time when you should have been advancing on the enemy and forcing the enemy to react to you, taking the initiative against the enemy, what were you doing? You were doing a bit of a dance around the field. The problem was that when they actually hit you, Kez was not quite in line with Scott, and Kez's troops and Scott's troops provided ample opportunity for the Persians to come in and kill your people.
They came down off the hill, which was a good thing. They completely forgot about the cavalry. Now, Kerry pointed that out, and she's absolutely right. They forgot about the cavalry. But even if the cavalry hadn't been on this field, you would have lost that battle just against the Persian infantry.
You guys were not completely useless. One thing that you did do, and that Dave did, was appreciate the importance of the way that you were deployed. So you were understanding the requirements, you just weren't able to put it all together.
And on the plus side, all your troops eventually had the same fondness for the sea that you do, which is nice. Would you like to see how the battle was really fought?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I think we should.
Now, Miltiades, the Athenian general, knows he's got a problem, and his problem is that there are more Persian troops than there are Athenians. He has to keep his front as wide as possible to stop himself being outflanked. He takes a calculated risk. He leaves the center of his line relatively thin and reinforces the flanks. The theory behind this is that once the actual clash takes place, the flanks can drive in. No sooner do they see the Persian line than they begin to advance. Until they get to within 200 meters, they're advancing at a normal pace, and then they go into the double. This is the 200 meters that the actual Persians can fire their arrows, and they want to be in that killing zone for as little as possible, and they drive into the Persian army.
And the Persians are able to push forward, and in fact, they actually manage to punch through the Athenian center. And the Persians think they're doing okay, in spite of the fact that they're doing that close quarter fighting that they're not especially fond of.
And in many cases, when you've got two battle lines, that's a major advantage, and it often means you're going to win the battle. But the difference is the flanks are so powerful of the Athenians that they're actually able to drive into the middle, causing such panic that half the Persian army is actually moving towards the beach, and the other half is getting caught in the sort of pincer movement in between. And this is what the Greeks are good at: close quarter fighting with their swords and their spears, and they are wiping out the Persians.
So the Persians make a run for their ships, and the Persians are able to sail off, and they're going to head for Athens next.
Now, the problem the Athenians have got is that if the Persians get there before they can get their army back, or more importantly, before they can get word back to Athens that they've won this great victory, the fifth columnists within Athens, who are just waiting for a sign so that they can come out in rebellion and support the Persians and invite the Persians in, there's that danger that that will happen. So they've got to get word back to Athens. So what do? They choose the greatest runner in the Athenian army, Phidippides, a man who's already fought during the battle. He's pretty exhausted, but he has to go 26 miles. He manages it in 3 hours, which isn't bad. He gets word through to Athens. The internal rebellion is stopped and Athens is saved. Unfortunately for Phidippides, he's so exhausted, he collapses and dies later that day. But he becomes an Athenian martyr and he saves Athens.
The sacrifice of Phidippides will be immortalized in the most grueling endurance event, the Marathon Run. The Greeks had decimated their enemy at Marathon, slaughtering 7,000 Persian troops, while losing just 192 of their own men. Democratic Athens would flourish, and its artistic and philosophical legacy would fundamentally shape Western culture.
And so, unlike the Athenians in 490 BC, you had minute-by-minute satellite pictures of everything that was going on in the battlefield, and a giant screen on which you could see everything that was going on. And you lost.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing.
Body